Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. So, this is Earth Under Siege, Flashpoint. This is heavy. Heavy. What do you need to know about this game? Are you watching it? Are you considering it? Is it right for you? I've got a hands-on copy. I've been able to play it. They sent me it to try it out so I could talk to you guys about it. Let's talk. What do you need to know? How is it? What is it? Who is it right for? Let's do this. So first up, I just got to get this out of the way because you need to know. This is probably the most important point of the video, and I'm just going to lead with it. I'm not going to bury the lead, or I'm not going to make it clickbaity, so you got to find out where it is. This is a very complex dungeon crawl game. It is. The rules are heavy. The nuances of the mechanics are very heavy. It is technically complex in terms of what you need to keep track of in a Metal Gear Solid Assassin's Creed-esque style. And that is both a boon and a curse when it comes to this, because I look at this game, even though it is scenario driven, as more of a lifestyle game than several other dungeon crawlers that I have played or have in my collection. And again, I say that not as a negative, but as a pure, this is what you need to know, as a subjective thing. And I don't think the designer would argue with that. I mean, this is a heavy, heavy game. This rule book right here has a lot in it. This rule book is 50 some pages, and it's a lot of detailed stuff. There's a lot of text on these pages, and that's okay. It's going to take more thinking and thought to grasp it than it will with some others. And how do you feel about that? If you're okay with that, well, I mean, it does a wonderfully tremendous job of making itself, because this is point number 2 already, of when I look at these games, when I compare games across the board, whether it's my 2-player duelers, my abstracts, my dungeon crawls, I look and I go, why do I want to have this in my collection, right? What is going to make this different from other things that I have in my collection? And again, to be completely transparent here, this is unlike anything else I have played dungeon crawl wise, with the stealth mechanic, with the action checking mechanics, with the blips and the noticing versus unnoticing, and the objective based scenarios where, you know, there's a lot of nuance there. And it's more, like I said, Metal Gear Solid than it is smash and grab. This is more V Commandos, Assassin's Creed taken up to the next level than anything else. Those are the 2 closest things you can compare it to, and I don't think it even compares. I think it's technically more complex, with more nuance, more degrees of management, and more degrees of mitigation, all rolled into one. Now again, mitigation, I mention mitigation because a lot of the checks and the attacks, I mean, you're dice rolling. And you need to be aware. And similar to the other game that I just played in Title Blades, you are rolling dice to attack. They hit you. You need to be able to defend their hits, where when you attack, how you attack, the manner in which you attack really, really makes a huge difference. That cannot be understated. You will learn very quickly that you will take a lot of damage and a lot of literal and metaphorical flack, in that sense, if you do not understand the tactics and the nature of this game in the first place. If you treat it like a lot of the other dungeon crawlers where you're slugging it out, it's going to end poorly for you. This game does not handhold. This game does not treat it lightly from the get-go. It is full speed, right away, right from the get-go. Boom. Point 3. The characters, though. Because there is so much overhead, because there is so much work and fine detail that has gone into all of these nuanced aspects of this game, the characters are asymmetric. So when you're playing as one character, you have much more of a choice, whether that is through the items and the upgrades that that character has that are specific to them, or the power and ability deck that you are getting on a turn-by-turn basis and using as your actions. The Gloomhaven asks you can either take the top one or the bottom one, and a lot of them having persistence versus reactions versus, you know, effects are really well done. It works really well when you get the timing of that. But as someone who is playing these games now, recently, multi-handed, this one was really tough to play multi-handed because there is this much to learn and this much to remember in terms of all of that. And that's what I think you need to know. This is a game, whereas a couple of the others I have played recently, that you can play multi-handed if you're a solo player, because I mean, this one scales. So, you know, you can still get away with that. If you're looking at this as, I want to play it solo, but I want to play multiple characters, this one is going to push the limits of what you can do. And because each character has to have each plan and each check and because the asymmetry is just so massive, it's going to be a lot more difficult if that is how you like to play. If you like to play like that, I would almost recommend you look elsewhere. It's going to be enough for you to manage it just with one. It's probably going to be almost too difficult to manage it consistently long term with all of the stuff that gets added on a scenario after scenario, and the, you know, the experience and the upgrades and all of that stuff over time. Because, you know, point three, this is a lifestyle game in that sense. This is probably the most complex dungeon crawl I have ever played. Again, going back to point one, I don't say that as a negative. I say that as a statement of fact. It is more of a lifestyle dungeon crawl. This is going to reward you with repeated, close, time-wise plays. More so than months apart. If this is months apart and you're looking at, you know, recycling or cycling through your games on an infrequent basis, this one is probably not going to be for you, because you're going to have to relearn it, and it's going to be a lot harder to relearn because of the overhead than other stuff. Again, matching you with the game is important. Not only is it going to get to the table, but do you have the bandwidth to handle it on a consistent basis? Another thing I like as point four, the action mechanic of how you are being forced to utilize things. Because, I mean, when you play a lot of other dungeon crawls, right, you can just kind of do whatever you want. You know, I can take my full turn. I'm going to maximize out everything, sort of like deck builders, where a lot of deck builders, most deck builders are, I play every card in my hand and that's just what happens, right? But this game, again, from the nuance, it is from top to bottom that is taken into account. So you have the potential on any given turn, you have the potential for 6 different things that you can do: 3 movement and 3 action. But if you take all of those 6, only 3 of them are refreshed each round. So you're only going to get 3 of them back. Also, if you are injured, that is how your damage is calculated or carried over, is you lose the ability to have that action. You get to choose which action you lose when you're hurt or wounded, but it's a very unique action mechanic that balances it out. Because I think the concern when I play a dungeon crawler, when I think about games that take this into account, for example, Mythic Battles Pantheon, sitting right behind me. When your character gets hit, they get damaged, their stats go down, right? Not very many dungeon crawls, battlers even, in any sense or aspect of that, utilize anything like that, right? I'm hanging on by a thread, and I'm just as powerful as I was when I was at full health, right? I mean, that's the extent of a lot of these games. Most of these games. This mechanic makes it so that is not the case, right? If you've taken damage, your limitations are going to be significantly more than if you hadn't taken the damage, which again goes back and means that you really need to be tactically strategic in how you're approaching each of these variable scenarios. Point 4, though, this game is just difficult. Like, that would be the other worry that I have, is if you're not the best tactician. This game is brutal. In terms of the enemies, in terms of the different asymmetric enemies, you know, there's 3 different types, at least in the prototype that I have, of each enemy. And so all have a different, slight different ability that when they come out, when they get spawned, that they're going to do, which again is a great thing, right? It's nice to see that all of the enemy mobs just aren't doing the exact same thing in the exact same manner. No, they're all different in that sense. But it's a really freaking difficult game. It is. Again, I've played difficult games. I like difficult games. But this is really, really hard. And is that going to frustrate you? Or are you one of those people that's going to meet it head on and take that as an initiative and a challenge to up your game better firsthand? Because some people love that challenge and other people go, you know what? Anything under like a 50% win ratio is nope, not doing it. There's hard fun and there's hard soul crushing, if you will. And just like with all the rage with Elden Ring right now and Dark Souls and things like that, which side of that coin flip do you fall on? Now, going back to what I said earlier a little bit, there are ways to scale it. You can play as other squad members in a simplified version to help you if you are, playing it with less people. But playing as a person who wants to get the full experience, you're going to use a lot of those other mechanics and a lot of those other nuances because that's really where the game is so fully fleshed out. Everything from being inside a ventilation shaft to dealing with technicians on site, accuracy, adjacency, bursts powers, resilience, spray. I mean, the list of terms here, that you can see on the page, just a ton. The list of iconography that you have to know, again, a ton. And so it's just the sheer thoughtfulness that has gone into this shows how much work has been put into this. And it's nice, again, you look at this cover and you look at this picture and you go, this is a typical sci-fi smash 'em up, whatever, zombie side thing, right? This thing is the opposite of that. And again, I say that as a positive because it's taking the genre and doing something different to close. So what do I think? I think after having played it, I don't have enough bandwidth to routinely get something like this to the table. It is overhead-wise, it is complexity-wise, just too much for me personally. Again, as a personal side of things. But if you're someone who, because that's the other thing I'll see all the time out there on the forums, people going, oh, this game was too easy, this game was too light, there wasn't enough depth, I can't mitigate stuff enough in this game, I didn't like it. You need to check this out then. Because this game is going to be the closest thing, again, what I compare it to is like the Dark Souls, the Elden Rings of the dungeon crawl. And I mean that as a very positive thing. Because, although there is an intro scenario book right here that sort of walks you preliminarily through the steps of the, what you need to know, it doesn't handhold you once you get into the actual scenarios. And the customization and the optimization and the upgrades and the dealing with stuff as you're going along is a ton. And so if you want that, this has more of it than almost anything else out there I've seen as well. So, as they say, heavy is the crown, right? If you want it, it's going to require you to put in the extra effort, energy, and playtime. And me with 3 young kids and infrequent group meetups, it doesn't fit where I'm at currently. But you know what? That's okay, because every game is not meant for every person. There are plenty of games in my collection that I don't recommend to people because they're clearly not where I'm at. I love abstracts. A lot of people don't, but I love talking about abstracts, for example. But if you just don't like abstracts, that's not going to change your opinion on me loving it, right? Sort of like this. If you're looking at this and you're going, yeah, I think this is of serious interest and these things aren't a turnoff at all, this game is unlike anything else I've played recently. And again, I've played things, like Kingdoms Forlorn. I've played Tidal Blades. I've played Harakiri. I've got Vagrant Song I've played. Jaws of the Lion. Bloodborne. So I've got a breadth Madara to compare it to. The closest thing is probably Machina Arcana in a sense that it's not going to be a run and gun. It's going to be a run and then maybe gun when you need to. So there you go. Those are my thoughts overall. Let me know what you think. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have concerns, I'd be happy to talk about them in the comment section. Thank you again for Dark Horizon Games for sending me the copy so I could talk about it for you guys. As always, stay classy. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. See you around. Smash that like button if you like, because that's what all the cool kids are doing.